Okay, hi everyone, and welcome to episode 14 of the Purple Hyacinth, La Lune. It's probably the shortest chapter title, and the only one exclusively in French, I think. So, La Lune, the moon. And we ended off last episode with Hermann reading aloud the, what did he call it? Melodramatic? What did he call the letter? Some insulting term.
I can't remember. It was not a nice term, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course, because he's so straight-laced. He's like, what's this drama? Why are they putting this in? So we see Lauren in her pretty detective-y outfit, but yet with her high heels, which I do not wear her high heels, and I would never wear her high heels while doing practical work. I think I wear high heels to like a party once a year. But anywho, that's just my personal vendetta against the impracticalness of high heels. Anywho, but Lauren is doing this detective work while this text is being read aloud. Inside this folder, you will find everything you need to send Gregory MacTrevor to his final destination, incarceration, sorry. And she's taking out some files. She has a hat on, she's masked. Each one of his crimes, the names of his collaborators, proof of payments, all in order, very organized. Now, we see Kieran sipping from a cup at a bar. Instructions have been provided on how to trace any evidence that couldn't fit inside this envelope. And now we see them probably in his cave, sorry. Same thing, cave. And surrounded by papers, stacks of papers, she's looking at them. He's on the floor sitting. You have the day to verify everything here is in accordance with what is already known in MacTrevor. And then you see them typing things out. Kieran looks very frustrated. Lauren looks frustrated. Clearly, this is not their favorite part. Either that or they're not working very well together.
This kind of really shows their relationship and how they're both really stubborn and they probably don't work the best together, but they still make it work.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I always think about that because I'm a pretty strong-minded person, and I know my husband's super passive in many ways, and I know that like I chose him because subconsciously I clicked with that. My parents' relationship was like that, and I always wonder, like, I appreciate strong-minded people, and he's strong-minded in other ways, but I appreciate strong-minded people, but I always wonder, like, how well can we work together? So yeah, they're both very, very similar in many ways. Stubborn and strong-minded, want things done their way. So I can see them clashing, but also working well together after getting over the hump of working together and having to compete for the authority.
I think this panel also shows, this is Laura, by the way.
Oh, I totally forgot. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, and just for the listener, I was on a podcast a couple episodes ago, but my voice is really raspy because my vocal cords have gone through a lot of damage, so I'm still recovering. Anyway, so just bear with my raspiness. So this particular panel, Kieran, he looks kind of goofy. Also, you can tell he's so tired. And then you can see Lauren looks so annoyed with him. And I think that also says a lot about their dynamic, that she's always like super annoyed and he's always trying to get right out of her.
Mm-hmm. I find it's a very, they don't think of it as flirtatious, but it's like a very typical thing where like the boy teases and makes jokes and the girl's like, oh, come on, oh my gosh. And it's like really because, like he's giving her attention and she's like, throwing it off. But that's the dynamic I see with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And while you were starting the episode, Mindy, I was looking back to see what Hermann called it. He called it a prank, the evidence. So it's called it a prank. But I did also want to point out in the first panel, when we see Lauren's high heels, like I also don't like high heels. I don't wear them hardly ever. But I think it's interesting she chose to wear them to sneak into the police department, because you would think that'd be giving part of herself away if someone did come in and catch her. Like, even though most of herself is covered, she's got most of her face, she's wearing gloves, so she won't leave any like handprint or fingerprints or anything, but she's wearing heels.
Yeah, and I'm sure it like clack too.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that Lauren is shown, because normally, she's a police officer, she's all about upholding law, she's all about like morality, but here she's like in the darkness, where Kieran normally works in the darkness, but it's Lauren this time that's working under the cover of darkness, and then Kieran in the cafe or the bar or wherever he is, he's more in the light. It's interesting.
He's not in disguise either. She's all
Right.
masked with the hat, and he's just out in the open.
Right. Yeah.
It's a good
Yeah.
point.
He's still being like, well, I don't know what the word is. He's still like, he looks kind of like he's in the corner away from everybody else. Like he's still reclusive, maybe is the word. He's still like keeping to himself. But yeah, he's not trying to be in disguise or hide himself.
So it's interesting because what he said to Lauren way back in the beginning when they met, he said, I walk around with his face and nobody screams and runs away. So his identity is separated from himself, right, from his face. And when people know his identity, they're like, okay, totally bad. But Lauren has her identity and herself are one and the same right now. Up until now, she's always been Lauren, and she's been, straight faced, whatever she is, she is. Now she has to hide, she has to separate that clean faced identity and disguise herself so that she can do these illicit activities. Whereas he's always kind of had that separation.
It's kind of risky for Lauren, honestly, because of her place. She's so high up in society, and even if she's not well known, her family name is. And if she got found out, like, it would be pretty bad for her whole family.
Yeah,
and including
almost the chief of
Tristan.
police.
Tristan could possibly be fired because of that.
Yeah. I bet you Lauren didn't even think about that. She's so single-minded, and it's kind of a little bit, I'm not going to say self-centered in a bad way, but like focused. I don't even know if that crossed her mind.
That's a good point.
She's always just wanted like one thing, and I don't think that she really thinks ahead as much. Like, she thinks ahead but doesn't think about the bigger pictures and how it might affect other people.
Yeah. Yep. So, and the letter continues. As for his arrest, you will find him at his home at 23 Palmer Street. I feel like we should Google this. Do you think it has any significance? Probably not. Let me just do a quick Google. Palmer meaning. Norman Conquest, 1066. Someone who worked as a palmer. Okay, someone, I guess, not that I know what palmer is. Anyway, palm trees. Probably not significant. So now we see, I think, Lauren typing on November 15th at precisely 11:11 p.m. And we see this very cute image of like these hooded, cloaked figures on the roof. A little bit chibi, even though we don't see their faces. Not a minute more, not one less. But you could totally tell Kieran put that line in because it's like so over the top.
Very dramatic, yes. And this panel of them, I'm assuming it's Lauren and Kieran on the roof, right, on MacTrevor's roof. And at first I was like, oh, it's foreshadowing that they're going to be there before the police get there. But I also think it might be them staking out MacTrevor's like nightly habits, like they're trying to figure out when he goes to bed, what his routine is, so they can tell the police when to show up.
Yeah, so I also didn't think much of it until I read Meg's novelization, and she also interpreted it that way, that they were staking it out so they could see exactly what his habits were. Yeah. So now a minute more, not a minute less. And again, now it looks like she's putting it on the cart. And it is imperative that the contents of this envelope remain under the seal of secrecy until that time. And now we see her placing it on the cart, gloved. The Phantom Scythe has eyes and ears everywhere. Boom, boom. And then we go back to the office. Herman, is it bad to say this? I think he looks great in this shot. I know everyone loves to hate Herman. They're like, Herman is ugly. I'm like, Herman, nobody in this whole story is ugly. And I think he looks great here. I don't know. I think I've taken it upon myself to defend him.
I'm going to be honest. He aged well, but his personality and just the way that he treats people cancels it out.
Got it.
And
yeah,
that's more than cancel it out for me. But he did age. A lot of the people in this like aged well. It just, some of them, their personality overtakes what they look like.
Got it. I also think it's hilarious that you call him aged. I'm like, he's like, what, 40? Okay, he's probably later than 40. But I don't know, I'm 31 and I'm at the age where like men in their 40s those are the men that I, look at. I'm married, but whatever. But so like guys in their 20s are like babies. Anyway, so if its Kieran's are revealed, it's Kieran's. Sorry, my mind was thinking of Kieran as the young 20-year-old. If its contents are revealed or leaked, The whole operation could be compromised, and you lose your only chance to stop MacGregor. Sorry, MacTrevor. And Lauren is smirking over her coffee cup.
Trying to hide her
She,
smirk by
she
taking-
wrote it. She wrote it. She's glad that it's getting attention.
Yeah. I hope no one is looking at her right now, is all I'm saying.
I know if someone is, she's trying to hide her smirk by taking a sip of coffee. Yeah. And it's also, when I was on the podcast a couple episodes ago, I mentioned that the lighting is very symbolic. And so when Hermann is reading the letter, his face is completely in the light and he's like reading what's happening. And then Lauren's face, it's mostly in the shadow here. Not being sneaky.
Very true. That's great. And now Hermann has this just exasperated look, and he's like, apparently the writer holds his own theatrics in very high esteem. Hilarious and pretentious. Oh God.
And I do just want to mention that they automatically assume that the person that wrote it is male, which already automatically takes some suspicion off of Lauren. And interesting to think about how at least Hermann thinks that it was only a male. It's just interesting to think about for me.
I'm totally not surprised. You know, it's stereotypes that people have, still have it today. So, you know, of course we don't, obviously this isn't a specific like time period, but not surprised that he assumes that it's a male. I mean, oh well, better for Lauren, I guess, right?
Much better for Lauren.
Hermann also assumes it's just one person.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they do end up signing it, right? So like they didn't specify two people, so or more. Anywho, Lauren spits out her coffee, not very subtle, but okay. And March says, from what I've seen in this file, this work is a professional. This is the work of a professional, which March, by the way, he doesn't even know it, but he's always consistently throughout the comic, you know, giving Lauren credit where credit is due and praising her work. So here he is doing it unknowingly. She's coughing. He continues, it has to be someone with precise knowledge of our investigations on MacTrevor. Okay.
And he's looking around the room as he's saying that. Is he implying that it's someone in the room?
Pretty much. Somebody in the police. And Will asks, is it signed? And Hermann says, yes. He calls himself Lune. And we see the signature on the typed letter. Okay. Well, Lune means moon. Why do you think they call themselves Lune?
I guess I've never really thought about this, but I mean, I know that Soph and F are, even if they don't admit it, there is a lot of symbolism and stuff. So I'm sure that there's some symbolic reason behind it. I assume it's probably because of like how they're sort of working in the dark almost.
Yeah. That's what I thought too. I'm trying to think if there's anything more, like the moon is a reflection of the sunlight. Not sure how we can connect that.
Yeah, it could be something like that. The moon is like a bright spot in the dark sky.
Okay. Yeah, they're the bright spot in the darkness of the terror and the confusion and the unknown.
Right. And the moon has phases, right? So sometimes it's like full bright and it's like super bright in the sky, and sometimes it's just a little sliver.
It waxes and wanes, grows in strength and decreases. Okay.
It could also be some sort of what am I trying to say? Maybe the way like Kieran and Lauren think of themselves, or something, like Kieran operates more in the darkness, Lauren more in the light, maybe.
Okay.
Maybe it's like the two of them coming together. Maybe if it's very speculative, but like the idea of the sun reflecting off, or the moon reflecting the light of the sun, maybe something that has to do with that. I'm trying to articulate it well, I'm struggling. But this panel also shows the letter is half in shadow, half in light. And I just think that really ties in well with the idea of the moon, of them as Lune.
Yeah, very true.
Maybe also, oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Maybe also it has some sort of meaning with like when Kieran first approached Lauren about this idea, he said, you know, you're a police officer, I'm a criminal, we could work on both sides of the law. So they're on this side of the law being super shady about how they're collecting the evidence, but also presenting it to the police so that the police can work on the right side of the law to take care of it, maybe.
I just thought also maybe because the moon appears and reappears by night and disappears during the day. So like they too, you know, at night they operate in one way and during the day they operate on different faces, like you said. So appearing and reappearing. Cool. I mean, same thing we said for the sun, but whatever, let's disregard that. Okay, I think we've analyzed that part quite roundly. So now we get to the clock. It's 5 o'clock. The day's over. Will says, good job on the patrol today. They're packing up. And Marsh says, we've combed over the entire file, Captain. Everything is correct. Honestly, I've never seen anything like this. No one at the station did this, I guarantee you. Which just to me is like, this is way too good for any one of us to have done this. Like, is that what you're saying, March?
I mean, to be fair, he's right, because Lauren got all this information through Kieran. And I mean, someone could have done it, but this is really only information that someone from the fandom side could have gotten.
Yeah. And Lauren is finally making a statement to like make her seem normal. And, you know, she has to act as usual. And she says, what if it's a trap laid out by someone from the Phantom Scythe or working closely with its members? And Hermann, again, credit to Hermann, he's not completely a douche. He says, Officer Sinclair is right. I will not let this Lune criminal dictate the actions of the 𝗪𝗏𝗃 police department. There's no legal way he could have compiled this. And this has like two elements of Hermann. It has the part that not that I relate to it, but the part that I commiserate with, which is we called it last episode, I think lawful good or lawful neutral, which is where he's a stickler. He's a by the book kind of guy. And Leslie mentioned, you know, that's the kind of guy you want to have running a police department. You want to have a guy who sticks to the rules. But then there's this other part to Hermann where he is very proud and he has a bit of an ego. And that's the first part of what he says, that he doesn't want this Lune person to dictate the police department's actions. He wants it he doesn't want to be led around by someone else. And that's his pride speaking, which granted, it's a really understandable trait. You know, he's the head of the police and I understand that he doesn't want anyone else to be dictating him, but others like March, who now says he's willing to accept help in order to get the case resolved. He's willing to put his pride aside, or he probably doesn't have that pride to begin with. He says, Captain, I've been working with Trevor's case for 5 years. Everyone knows he's a crook with probable ties to the Phantom Scythe. His wealth protects him, but this time there's not enough gold in the world to bail him out. And Will says, it might be a trap, but we're the APD. We know he's guilty of everything he's been accused of. We have everything we need to arrest him tonight. It's our responsibility to follow up on this. So it's very interesting that like Hermann displays both of his sides in that statement.
Yeah. And going back to the lighting idea, like his face is in this panel is completely in the light. He's like being really open and honest about his pride and also being one to follow the rules. March, when he says, you know, this could put him behind bars, he's half in the shadow, half in light. So maybe he's more willing to compromise, be a little bit more shady. He's like, I know we don't know how we got this information and probably didn't come by legal means, but we can still use it. And then William, he is completely in the light. He's like, we have a responsibility to follow up on this. This is our moral obligation.
That is such a Will statement. I didn't even think about it, but yeah, he's all about responsibility and duty. Oh, poor guy. Sorry, yeah. I know I'm foreshadowing to later stuff, but yeah, I mean, they've characterized him very well where he's just always consistent. And Hermann doesn't want to hear that. He says, then we arrest him now, which is pretty stupid in my opinion. March says, no, I want to wait for the time Lune specified. He's like, you want to follow his instructions? Why? He can't stand other people telling him what to do, which I get. He's like, he was right about everything else. There must be a reason for the deadline. Wouldn't it be wiser to respect it? And then, which is smart, but now he's also being even more clever because he's catering to Hermann's sensibilities. When you speak to someone, effective communication involves understanding your listener and what motivates them and what would get them to understand you. So he now says, And maybe if Lune's there, we can catch him in the act too, which is something that Hermann does want. So he's using persuasion that Hermann can understand and relate to. And he's like, you? Like, fine, it's your time to waste. He sighs. March, you're in charge of this. Gather your team. He storms off. But then he stops and he says, and this exceptional incident shall remain strictly confidential until the case is solved, until MacTrevor is either behind bars or back home in his bed. I mean, this is a very emphatic panel. He's quite stringent and strict about this. Am I clear? Focus in on the eyes.
The dark eyes. Oh man, he means business.
Yep. And then, yeah, everyone's like, yes, sir. You could just like see them saluting. And now he brings his face closer to March and he's like confronting him. It's like, and March, that envelope didn't just fly onto the mail trolley. Someone must have put it there and I want that person found. Boom, boom. Whew. He can't handle it. And I get it. I do get it because honestly, it is it's a suspicious incident. And if they're saying that they have information the police department doesn't have, it's probably someone working with a phantom site. I totally get why he is concerned about that.
Yeah, and the way he's looking at March, maybe he's just angry, but also I wonder if he's like implying that March is on thin ice. Like, has March ever stepped out of line before, or has he like gotten on his bad side somehow, or is this just enough to make Hermann so angry with him? I don't know.
That's a good question. In light of some more really recent episodes about March and his family, maybe. Well, you heard it here first then from Laura, if that turns out to be the case.
Before we move on to the next part, just going back up to when Lauren, like you said, she still has to act in character. She still has to act like herself. And so she said, what if it's a trap? What if it's laid from someone from the phantom site or working closely with its members? I also wonder if that's Lauren's way of maybe like trying to come clean as much as possible. Like she's trying to hint to her, at least her friends. I don't know, maybe she's feeling kind of guilty.
Interesting.
Or maybe not.
Well, you know, the best version of a lie is as close to the truth as possible, apparently. So I'm told. So that could also be a version of it. Okay, so now we are at nighttime. It is 10:30, sorry. 10:30 at night. And MacTrevor is in his pajamas, carrying a candle, presumably going to bed. And we hear a creak. Oh dear, ominous. And
this is the window, right? That they're coming in from, or is it the door that's creaking?
It looks like the door. I think they already are in the room.
Okay.
He opens the door and whoosh, we have, oh my gosh, I love their outfits. I have to say, like their outfits are so classy.
They always have the best outfits. Like I assume Kieran must make a lot of money from being an assassin, like a decent amount of money to be an assassin, enough to have many different outfits. He's a fashionable person.
Oh, they're gorgeous. I dressed up for Purim, which is with holiday where you dress up. I dressed up like in the Victorian era several times, and I just decided to give away the outfit because I'm like, I haven't worn it since I dressed up. I'm like, I'm not gonna keep it in my closet, let someone else enjoy it. But yeah, it was very much that look, the shirt and then like the vest. I had all that. I was like, oh, it's so beautiful. Just gorgeous. So yeah, I believe this is Lauren, actually, the first one that we see. And yeah, but they both look stunning. Oh gosh, fashion. And we have a shot of them, the side of their faces. And again, I think it's just showing the intense parallelism between them, both wearing hats, both masked, covering everything except their eyes. And, they are now working as a team. So like whatever distinctions are present during the day are out the window now. Again, symbolically and metaphorically. So, And they say together, "Good evening, sir." So they definitely are a team.
So
that's
dramatic
really
in
nice.
unison.
Yeah.
I really love in this webtoon, there are a decent amount of like like half of the face together scenes almost, like this one right here. And I love them. They make it seem like the two people are not together, but like you can see how they like are working together, and it's really interesting. And I love them.
Mm-hmm. I want
Do
to
you-
read the
do you
creators'
think-
note. They know how gorgeous they are because they say, "Good evening, sir. I'm a thief and I'm here to steal your heart." And they said it in singular, just like you said. So they are one person, which, by the way, is totally a foreshadowing of when they will be married and one person forever and ever. Just saying.
Okay, Mindy. What do you think the significance is of Lauren being on the right with Kieran being on the left? Lauren's also slightly higher than Kieran.
Okay, well, I know in Judaism, which totally is not relevant, the right side is considered more dominant because most people are right-handed. So it's like you always start out on the right, and like that's the more important and like, respectable hand. So there's that. And her being on top. So she's like the law, the one who's pure in the eyes of the world so far.
Yeah, I could see that. I guess
I can't
also
really think of much for this one, but there maybe symbolism.
maybe, yeah, I was thinking along those same lines, Mindy, that maybe it's like Lauren perceives herself as like higher than Kieran, or maybe the creators want us to think of Lauren that way. It could also be like a perspective thing, like Lauren is closer to the window, so she's further away from MacTrevor as he walks into the room. Kieran's closer to him.
Right. I mean, Kieran is the more I think he's the more capable one physically. I know that they're pretty evenly matched, but I think he edges out. And so maybe and also maybe there's still chivalry, and he's like, "I'm the guy, I have to be, the one in front in case there's any danger, I'll protect you." If we're gonna read into it, which I'm not sure if we should, but if we're gonna. Maybe she just wants to look cool, leaning back, nonchalant.
At least in the moonlight.
Yeah, but he also has a pretty nonchalant pose. He's I think he's like squatting and his arms are crossed, so he looks pretty chill as well. Of course, they both have to look cool. What less would we expect of them?
Going up just a little bit before we see them in the room, what is that white swoosh? Is that like one of the curtains for the window, or because it doesn't look like it matches the decor of the room?
I think so. I guess there's a curtain somewhere that they just opened up and went through.
I guess. Maybe it's part of their drama. They tried to like obscure MacTrevor's face as he walks in the room.
Maybe they just bring their own curtain. Well, do we have any final thoughts on this episode?
Not for me.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I don't know what happened to Emma, but that's okay.
No, Emma.
Well, thanks so much. This was a pretty short episode, but okay.
Yeah.
Well, very
Yeah.
dramatic.
It's so dramatic, so fun. Thanks, Emma. Wherever you at. Thanks for having us, Cindy.
Well, thanks so much. I'll catch you all later.
All right. Bye.
Bye.